Well, hello and welcome to this week's Angler News KZN Fishing Report. Guys, it was a great week. It was a truly phenomenal week until yesterday. Yesterday being Wednesday, the 11th of October, where things just turned sour. Guys, we were talking about brusher, we were talking about garrick, we were talking about 7 kilo grunts in the harbor, kingfish in the harbor, we were talking about bronze bream all over the place. There was inedible action all over. It was truly remarkable. Even the bass were on absolute fire up at Mudma. And then we've got weather warnings. We've had competitions canceled. Things are just not looking all that rosy for this weekend. Now, we do have a very small window to fish, and fishing we will do. But guys, like I said, it's a small window, and we're going to tell you exactly where the fish were coming out during the week before we sit at home this weekend and just watch cricket and rugby. So guys, let's get into it. But before we do, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Kingfisher and CMH Pinetown, with their brands being Proton, Mitsubishi, and Nissan. Guys, none of this could be possible without them. So support those that support you. And in this case, the Kingfisher and CMH Pinetown. So guys, let's get into this week's show, starting off down the South Coast. Now, down the South Coast, over the holiday period, it was truly fantastic. Guys, the holiday makers were really reaping the rewards with the amount of species that were coming out. Bronze bream, brusher, stumpies, a couple garrick came out, there were a few cob that came out. Now look at all these species that Adam is talking about right here. Guys, there was so much fish that were on the bite. I mean, look at the size of this cob that came out. Guys, it was South Coast was really on fire over this past week. And the flavor of the week, bait-wise, was your live bait, live mullet, if you had some, crayfish tails for that calhoun. And if you were looking for that garrick, sandspit was the area to be. Now, that was until this big southwesterly came through. And have a look at this video from Adam with exactly what the conditions are like. This was filmed on Wednesday afternoon with Adam's report of the area.
Good day, Vanesh. So we're down here at this little local bronze bream honey hole, and we've had a few black bream and big blacktail the last few days. So the water's looking okay at the moment. Not too great, but not too bad. Might be a little bit uncomfortable to fish. However, it does look like this weather for the upcoming weekend might not be too great. Let's see what happens. But there's been a lot of activity down on these local rocks here in Manaba, so it was definitely a hot spot the last few days. Take care.
So that was our lower South Coast report. That was the conditions with that southwesterly coming through, and it's only going to get a bit more unpleasant, guys. We've got winds coming through of up to 40 knots plus per hour. So yeah, South Coast for this weekend is not looking all that rosy. However, make sure to pop into your local tackle stores in the area and get those real servers, because all the big fish you have just seen is bound to get even better, and they're going to be there. This weather will settle, and we will be getting those rods bending again. Now let's move on down to Warner Beach and Amanzimtoti, where we've got reports of Gary that the garrick were on fire this week. There was a lot of garrick, but this time purely on live bait. Now we do know last week he was talking about garrick that was able to come out on those sardine baits or whatever bait your spoons plugs. This week it was purely on live bait. But on top of that garrick, there was still the stumpies and brusher. Now we know this is the season for them. So guys, stumpies, brusher, garrick, all week long was fantastic. Well, until once again, the southwesterly that started blowing quite hard. So guys, that is your lower South Coast. Moving on down to Durban. Guys, it was truly remarkable. I mean, we've had virtually every species that you could talk about, whether you were targeting grunter in the harbor was from small to 7 kilos. It was an absolute bus of a grunter. That's in your Durban harbor. Oh, apart from that, there was also the kingfish. And if you're looking for that springer, it's still early days for that. I mean, we're still just getting into that season. But the season that we are definitely on is on that offshore side. But the talk of the town on the offshore side has been the garrick. Now, apart from the garrick, there was some tuna. There was the odd cooter that was caught. It's still very early days for that, but there are signs that the cooter are coming through. As for the bottom fishing, well, apart from those bottoms, the keelback and the darker salmon are really getting those real smoked right now. On your rock and surf side, well, there were stumpies, there were brusher, there were the garrick on your rock and surf side. But another highlight has been that amount of inedible action. Guys, we are talking sandies, diamonds, and honeycombs. So, yeah, apart from that, there were also a few milkies, there were a few spinners. So, that summer fish are here, right? These are still the early days, so it's only going to get better. Yes, we cannot fish this weekend, but it's bound to get far better. Now, moving up to the north coast. Well, Jesse has reported a lot of bronze bream has been on the bite. Even this morning, we can see those weather turning. It's overcast, it's rainy, but the guys are going out for that bronze bream. Like we said, there is a very small window to go out and fish. Now, apart from the bronze bream, this time of the year is also known for the stumpies and brushes. So they have been on the bite over the last week. Obviously, things has changed with the change of weather conditions. So, guys, yeah, the weather is not looking all that rosy in the area. However, guys, great news. Tongat Mouth, the river mouth, has been fishing phenomenally well with a lot of cob action. So the whole Belito Salt Rock area is doing pretty decent at the moment until, well, like we said, bad weather this weekend. Now, if you want to see what the weather is like, this is a huge shout out to our new correspondent, Martin, who I'd like to introduce to the show. Martin is based in Amshlali, and he's been providing us with daily reports of what's going on in the area as well as the weather conditions. Guys, this is Martin's report of what's going on as of Wednesday, the 11th of October.
Just an update from Sheffield Salt Rock. On the surf, fishing conditions, it's absolutely crazy. It's like a washing machine out there. Southeaster is pumping, so unfortunately no fishing this afternoon. Have a great day.
Thank you, Martin. Great to have you part of the show, my friend. And we look forward to next week's reports when the weather does settle. Now, moving further up, Tindy Manor, Blackdale, Voti, Tugela. Guys, there has been a couple of cob. There has been some Garrick. Sufika from Deguza did report a lovely sandy that came out. He managed to save the weekend with the sandy coming in of up to 2 meters. So great catch by him. I was trying to get that image, just didn't get it in time for the show. But yeah, definitely that fish is out there. Moving up to Mtunzini Banks, well, Nick has reported some great river activity. Lots of mullet in the river, some good sized cob. Guys, there was a cob that came out that was so huge. The guy was spotted on the freeway pushing this cob in his wheelbarrow. Its head was sticking out the one end and its tail was coming up over his body. That's how big the cob was that came out of the Mtunzini River. So, guys, Mtunzini fishing pretty well on the rock and surf side of Mtunzini Banks. There's a couple of small hammers, a few spinner sharks, and we've got reports of that snapper salmon that's on the bite at the moment. Moving further up, Richards Bay. Well, it's inedible action on your rock and surf side. The usual suspects are on the bite. As for the harbor, well, there has been some Garrick, and we've got reports of some tuna on the offshore side. As for St. Lucia, well, St. Lucia has reported mainly fishing off the ski boats. Guys, there's been a fair amount of snook as well as a good amount of tuna, and that tuna is about between 8 to 9 kilos. So, guys, some good fishing up at St. Lucia. Nothing too much happening on the St. Lucia estuary or at Mission Rocks, although there were a fair amount of anglers that were out over this holiday period. Well, the last report we got, though, was the sea is big with a lot of sidewash, as expected throughout the rest of the coastline. So, guys, that rounds off our saltwater report. Now moving on to the freshwater, where things has been pretty good over this past week. We've got trout, we've got bass, we've got scalies, which has slowed down a little bit, but the yellowfish has taken its place on the leaderboard with that type of species. Now, Jan on our podcast is talking about some great catches that came out this week. These are some of them, and he's also talking about the flies to use, those that are mimicking that snails that the trout are feeding on. So, guys, Jan's prediction last week was absolutely spot on when he suggested pay attention to the barometric pressure. And those that did listen went out and were rewarded with some of these catches. Now, he's also been harping about the bass. He was asking the guys for a bit of show and tell, and look at this 4.5 kilo bucket mouth that came out by Garrett Portgita at Midma. So over the last couple of weeks, Midma was on the up and up. And beautiful fish, 4.5 kilos. There were a lot of other fish that came out. those were between the 1.5 kilo mark. So Mudma definitely producing the goods. And it's not to say Albert didn't get some fish as well. The juniors were fishing a tournament out there and they were rewarded on the same lines. So yellowfish, like we said, that's it's Sterky. Sterky is picking up at the moment. So if you want to find out more about Sterkfontein, well, give Jan from the Kingfisher Pietermaritzburg a call and he'll be glad to assist. So guys, that's our KZN fishing report for this week. Like we said, it is going to be trying weather conditions. In fact, it's going to be virtually a no-go. We've had the Abschlanger Ladies Comp that was cancelled. There's been warnings out there with severe thunderstorms that are coming through, some heavy sidewash reported throughout the coastline. From the visuals of Adam and Martin, you could see that the conditions are really not favorable. However, we do know that fortune favors the bold, and if you are one of those anglers that are getting out there, please be safe. Also send through that catches. We definitely want to see it. As for me and the rest of the guys that I've been speaking to, it is tackle maintenance weekend. We know there's been a lot of fish coming out over the last couple of weeks. Our tackle has been through a lot. So, hey, why not head down to your local tackle store, go and speak to the guys, get updated with what's going on, what you need for the season, make up some traces, clean out that tackle box, and be ready. This weather will settle over this weekend, and we will be back next week to bring you the latest catches and exactly those species that are bending those rods and screaming those reels in KZN right now. So until next week, guys, when you are out there, always remember, keep that fishing area tidy, respect your bag limits, respect the close season, and fish for the future.